Hey folks, Poster, welcome back to another Pokemon Masters video, and with some new, Synchreds, that got updated, and some new events that's been giving us a lot of, lucky cookies and lucky scrolls and stuff. Blissful Banana event. I thought it'd be a good idea, and a lot of folks also asked for this as well, and I can't remember which video I asked about it, but it was one of the videos. I think the Belleville video, but yeah, to go over the lucky skill recommendations again, and yeah, let's get into this. So I will talk about the new units first, so folks already watched the previous one before. Most of my opinions haven't really changed on certain suggestions for units, right? But yeah, for those who watched it before, you don't have to watch the whole thing. You just watch the new ones first and then go do other stuff. Watch more Pokemon videos. But that aside, let's get into this. So first of all, why am I only talking about Syncred units? Because I personally don't think folks should be spending lucky cookies on units that don't have grids yet, right? I see a lot of people talking about, oh, Brendan, Rayquaza, whatever, Chandelier, or some folks, right? I personally don't think it's that great of an idea to spend lucky cookies on those units before we get their Synchreds. Like a good example would be, I guess, Lucario, right? A lot of people have been spending lucky cookies on Lucario before Lucario's Syncred got announced, right? Or leaked, Datamined, whatever, right? And a lot of people have been rolling Enlightenment 9 on it, and then it turns out Lucario's Syncred came out, and Lucario's Syncred already has stats quo on it, so you could still use Enlightenment on it, but there are other options that you could potentially go, because you don't really need Enlightenment, since you do have stats quo on Lucario, right? So anyways, that's why I'm just going to talk about units with Synchreds. Again, like I mentioned before, don't really recommend people using lucky cookies on units that don't have Synchreds. But yeah, let's start this off with the new units by alphabetical order. Gallade. Gallade, there are mainly two lucky skills I'd recommend, and the one I recommend the most is Critical Strike 2. Critical Strike 2, like usually on a lot of strikers, they could go for either Power Flux or Critical Strike 2, right? But Gallade is clear-cut Critical Strike 2 for the reason, how Gallade is structured, right? So if you check Gallade's the Gallade Syncred, you got Critical Strike 1, Critical Strike 1, you got 2 Critical Strikes, so that already increases, your damage by 20% with a Critical Strike, and then, also, by the way, the damage formula, for those who haven't gotten updated on that yet, all these damage using passives are all additive. None of them are multiplicative. They're all additive. I think Faction updated the damage formula. So yeah, so there's no point using another separate passive. So they multiply instead. No, they're all additive. So yeah, the reason why we're going for that, because Gallade has unbelievable amount of crit. So you got Dire Hit, right, which raises crit +1, and then you also have Dire Hit MP refresh. But that's like nothing, because Gallade, when you use your sync move, you get +1 crit. And then when you're in Mega Gallade, which is when you use your sync move, when you're in Mega Gallade, or after you use your sync move, when you're in Mega Gallade, you get Zero In, which gives you +1 crit on all your moves. So as soon as you sync move, which is basically 3 turns in, right? You get in Villa, right? The other modes are kind of whatever. Don't need lucky skills for any of the other modes. Although you probably don't need lucky skills for Villa either, but it'd be helpful. But yeah, you basically get +2 crit without even using Dire Hit. When you use your second sync move, you're at 100% crit, right? So you don't need to use any MP with Gallade, and you could get easily 100% crit, right? Or at least 80% crit as soon as, again, turn 3 into Villa, right? So yeah, Gallade, I'd say clear cut Critical Strike 2 over Power Flux 3 in comparison to a lot of other strikers that could go either way, right? The other lucky skill that some people might want to use as well would be Enlightenment 9, just because you have a close combat as an option as well. Although Pokestops does deal more damage generally, but you know there are some situations where you probably want to use close combat as well. And close combat, obviously, you could still go for a critical strike too, but I guess Enlightenment 9 is also an option. But also you do have Stats Quo, but like if you do get Enlightenment 9, you do have the ability to pick up some more skills, right? That otherwise your grid would get sort of wasted on, right? Pick up ramming speed, pick up all this stuff. So you basically get all this stuff if you give up Stats Quo and you have Enlightenment 9, right? Because if you have Enlightenment 9, there's not any point to getting Stats Quo, right? But if you don't and you have to like pick up Stats Quo, you don't have like enough to get like a lot of this other stuff, which is kind of sad. So you have to give up the MP refresh on dire hit, which again isn't like the biggest deal. Or this other you can't get that out of the way, but yeah, it just depends on that. I don't think it's a big deal personally. I think even if you're running close combat, Crit Strike 2 is just infinitely better. So moving on, let's see. What's the other new one? Oh, Garchomp, I guess. Garchomp, Surging Sand 3. Surging Sand 3 is basically the only lucky skill I'd recommend on Garchomp. Some people say, oh, Crit Strike 2. But I'm like, would you really use Garchomp outside of Sand, right? If you use Garchomp in Sand, it's, you know, one of the strongest, like, literally, like, top 1 to hardest hitters in the game. And if you take Garchomp out of Sandstorm, like, what's the point? Just use something else instead, right? If you're using Garchomp, use Garchomp in Sandstorm, which is why, again, I recommend Surging Sand 3, right? Again, Critical Strike 2, is it bad? No, it's not bad. Is Paraflux 3 bad? It's not bad, but Surging Sand 3 just gives so much damage, right? That's extra 30% on top of the 30% over here, 30% over here, right? And yeah, it just makes Garchomp like insanely powerful. Moving on. What else we got? Who do we get that at the start of the month again? Oh yeah, Milotic. Where's Milotic at? Lucario first. Lucario's got a grid, right? Lucario is a weird one. Lucario's crit isn't really that reliable, and the MP refresh on Lucario is kind of potato. It's not like the worst thing in the world. It's MP refresh 2, which is still a 30% chance, right? But like most other units do have like when they go for like MP refresh, they usually have like 3. Some have 4, right? Lucario for some reason got shafted on this one and got 2, which is kind of annoying, but oh well, I guess. But for Lucario, sure you can go for Crit Strike 2, but I maybe lean towards slightly giving PF3 the edge, Paraflux 3 the edge. On that one in terms of Crit Strike 2 and Paraflux 3. Another one you could do is, again, Enlightenment 9. Picking up Enlightenment 9 does give you the freedom to you know, use others, use your energy elsewhere. Although personally I don't really think there is much energy to use like elsewhere. I guess maybe you could just go for like Force Entry 1, which I also don't think is that big a deal, because once you Mega you get access to Power Punch anyways. So I don't know. I personally think either Paraflux 3 or Crit Strike 2. But again, if you prefer Enlightenment 9, that's fine as well. Okay. Moving on. Where is the next one? Milotic, right? There's Milotic. Milotic's the other one. As with most tanks and you know, support-ish tech units, all that stuff, well, mainly tanks, Milotic's mainly tank, Vigilance is really good. Although, I do see Vigilance potentially going down in value soon once Steelix drops, because Steelix, the Steelix move, whatever, I think it's called Clang or something, the support move gives your whole team Vigilance. So I do potentially see Vigilance dropping in usage rate on Lucky Cookies, right? But as for Milotic himself, like, a lot of people, I do see people say, oh, maybe go for Crit Strike 2 on Milotic, because Milotic's like the hardest hitting water type unit in the game, which is true. It is the hardest hitting water type unit in the game. But I don't think you should really just go make it a Fallen Striker, because it's so good as a tank, right? And I do believe in the future we will get more harder hitting water type units than freaking Milotic, which again is a tech unit. which has absurdly high damage for some reason, right? But yeah, I really don't think any of the water types at the moment really need that much of a you know, to be that powerful to beat anything that's water weak in the stages. Maybe when the legendary arena comes out, maybe things will change there because it is weak to water, right? But at the moment, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. And I do think giving Milotic defensive skills would be better. Stuff like Vigilance, stuff like Antitoxin, stuff like Flameproof. Although I do think Antitoxin is slightly more important than Flameproof personally, especially for Milotic, which is, you know, all special moves, right? But yeah, it's mainly those three. I guess Stoic as well. Stoic's not bad. You know, obviously you want to keep the highest Stoic you could get. Stoic, Vigilance, Flameproof, Antitoxin, all those should be fine, right? So yeah, those are new ones, and just to quickly go over like the old ones, since I already went over them, but some of you all don't want to, you know, watch the old one for some reason. I don't know. Let's go to the other ones as well. So Alakazam, I see people like trying to put Crit Strike 2 on Alakazam, and as humbled as I am to see so much people give love to Sabrina as a striker, don't do that. Don't do that. Sabrina is a phenomenal support, top tier support in the whole game, right? I would just probably just go with more support moves, honestly, for Sabrina, than making Sabrina hit really, really hard. Which she does, but you know, in the future, I'm pretty sure there will be better. Again, same thing with Milotic. Sure, she hits really hard as a psychic type, you know, unit, but there in the future there will be other psychic type users that hit harder than Sabrina, much harder than Sabrina Alakazam, right? Just go for support passives. Again, stuff like Vigilance, Antitoxin, Flameproof, Stoic. These are usually the standard ones. Unless, you know, the only reason why you wouldn't use those lucky skills on a unit is if their passives have that skill, right? So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Moving on to Charizard. Charizard, I'd probably just go with Critical Strike 2. Reason being is sure you go with Power Flux as well, but Critical Strike 2 is pretty nice on Charizard. Because Charizard gets like Wally, although you know Charizard doesn't get basically +2 on Sync, but he gets +1. Which is still really nice, right? So you get free crits on that, and you also get Dark Hit Plus as well, right? So I definitely go for Crit Strike 2 over Power Flux 3 on Charizard, but again, if you get Power Flux 3, I wouldn't sweat it. It's still really, really good, right? So, although Power Flux did get nerfed, by the way, but it's still not bad. It's what, on 3-gauge move, it's 0.9, right? It used to be, what, 1.8, and now it's like cut in half, which is kind of sad. At minimum, right? But yeah, and Crit Strike obviously is 2.0, which is a pretty big difference. But again, Power Flux, you don't need crit, but Charizard gets crit relatively easily. Moving on to Dewgong. Dewgong, I'd say just, I guess, Crit Strike 2, Power Flux 3, right? It's, I guess, also Super Duper Effective is also a not a bad skill to have on units. But I just think in general, Power Flux and Crit Strike 2 are better, right? Because both of them do more damage. Well, unless your unit doesn't have, you know, crit at all, then probably Crit Strike not that great, right? But you know, if you're a 3-gauge move striker, Power Flux 3 just is better. It does like 10, or it does like 0.1 less than Super Duper Effective 1, but like you don't have to use it on something that's you're super effective against, unless you know you're using it on like some kind of niche type specific striker, then whatever, right? Moving on to where did I talk about Garchomp? Golisopod. Golisopod Crit Strike 2, right? I don't think Power Flux 3 is that great on Golisopod, just because Golisopod is a 2-gauge spammer, right? And just throw Crit Strike 2 on him. Like, he already does massive amounts of damage. Crit Strike 2, even more damage. Imagine a Crit Strike 2 bursting Golisopod, right? Boom. Not that you should be building for bursting. I was just thinking that was pretty funny. So, but yeah, obviously you want Pin Missile, but... Yeah, Crit Strike 2 for Golisopod Haxorus, you definitely want Lesser Confusion 9. If you don't get 9, you get 8, 7. I wouldn't worry too much about it, right? Although the bronze, the 2-star, 1-star cookies are relatively easy to get with the Blissful Banana event going on right now, so maybe you could re-roll on that if you're feeling generous, right? But yeah, you definitely want Lesser Confusion 9. You do not want Clear Headed, right? That's the one that completely clears you from confusion. You do not want that because you want Outrage Confusion Boon, which only activates when you are confused. So if you get Lesser Confusion, you will basically almost never hit yourself in confusion and get that extra 50% damage boost on Outrage, which is a lot of damage. Moving on, Heliolisk. Heliolisk is weird, I guess. There's a few you could go. You could do the I can't remember the name since they changed it recently. The hit and run, whatever it changed to, the one that increases your speed. Has a chance to increase your speed when you use a move. You could do that. Heliolisk isn't like the greatest tank in the world. Like Heliolisk, like it's the tank stack. Like Heliolisk is weird if you're trying to run him as a tank. Like, can he tank? Yes, because he could heal, but also like no, because it's not the most reliable tank. Like, its stats are fine, I just personally don't find it reliable. But if you want to tank with Heliolisk, obviously you go for the tank skills, right? Vigilance, antitoxin, anti-burn, or whatever it's called, flameproof I think it's called, and stoic, right? So moving on to Houndoom. Houndoom, you probably want Crit Strike 2, right? Again, Crit Strike 2, Power Flux 3, Power Flux 3 is fine as well, but again, Crit Strike 2, more damage in general, so you probably want that for Houndoom. Moving on, Infernape, probably the same stuff, Crit Strike 2, slash Power Flux 3, again, in this case, Crit Strike 2 slightly better. These are, these pretty simple ones, I'll just go, quickly go over. Kingdra, you want Dauntless, so your Drake meter doesn't decrease your special attack stat when you're at it, right? And the reason why you go for Dauntless even though you do have Drake meter stats quo is because stats quo only returns you to 0, and Dauntless does make it so that if you're at +4, which Kingdra could reach, right, +4 special attack, it doesn't decrease that at all. You're just always going to be at +4, which is pretty nice. But if you really don't think, if you're doing Villa runs where you don't want to use MP for any of that anyways, and you think, stats quo is fine, you want to go Crit Strike 2 or whatever, I'm not stopping you from doing that. I just personally think Dauntless is just better for Kingdra. Moving on, Liepard. Liepard is an interesting one because Liepard, a lot of people don't know how to actually use Liepard. Liepard is a phenomenal tank, right? It's kind of weird because, like, it doesn't, like, if you look at its stats, you're like, I mean, it has decent defenses, but, like, the HP is whatever. Is it really that great of a tank? Yes, it is a really great tank. But it tanks in a really weird way. It tanks by dodging and healing. It's in its kit, right? Like, you got a lot of stuff for dodges, right? On the run, all that stuff, etc. Your trainer move gives you dodge. And then you're basically trying to dodge opponent's hit. And when you do get hit, however, you could use Snatch, Catalytic Cure, and heal yourself back up, right? Ridicure as well, right? Dodge, heal. But the one thing about Liepard is on your trainer move, All or Nothing, you sharply raise crit, drastically raise evasiveness, but also drastically lower defense. So you definitely do want the lucky skill that prevents your, I don't know why I'm blanking on this right now. The one that unbending, where it doesn't lower your defense at all, right? So you definitely want a unbending on Liepard. Moving on, Masquerain, I would really suggest folks using lucky skills on it. Like, there really isn't much. I guess just Vigilance if you really want to use Masquerain to tank. I've tried tanking with Masquerain personally. I'm not a huge fan. If I'm completely honest here, not a huge fan of tanking with Masquerain. Masquerain is fine defensively, as good stats, all that. It's just slightly risky. But yeah, obviously the your run the mill, and it's really good defensively, right? Got Terrify as well. But just run the mill vigilance, antitoxin, I keep on saying anti-burn, flame proof, and what was the other one? Stoic, all that stuff. Right, they're all fine for that, right? Moving on, Meowstic. Basically, you're kind of in the same realm as where is it? As Masquerain is, right? Except you don't have as good defensive stats, uh, which again is a reason why I probably wouldn't tank with Meowstic. But what Meowstic does have is really good speed, so there's that, I guess. If you want the, the plus defense skill, I can't remember what is it called, Stoic, right? I think it's called Stoic. Let me just double check real quick. Yeah, Stoic 2. If you want to go for Stoic 2, that's fine. Vigilance, all that stuff. Anti-toxin, flamethrower. I really don't think you should use any lucky cookies on Meowstic. I don't think it's worth it, honestly. Moving on. Metagross, crit strike 2, even though it's crit is limited. But yeah, it just does like so much damage on it. I'd probably go with it anyways. Power Flux 3 is fine as well. But anyways, like if you're using Metagross, you're probably using Metagross on some like 3v9 stage in Villa, right, where you probably would bring crit buffs for Metagross regardless. So I don't think the getting Metagross crit is that big a problem. Crit strike 2 hits like a truck. Again, Power Flux 3 is fine as well. Moving on. Mew, you probably want to go for Vigilance. I don't think Antitoxin or Flameproof is that big of a deal on Mew, just because you have Natural Remedy. It's only once, but like, just take out the opponent that does status condition before it test statuses you again, basically, which really shouldn't be that difficult. But yeah, I'd probably just go Vigilance on Mew. I wouldn't even go for Stoic, just because World of Dreams just give you that chance to get like +3 on your defenses, right? All right, moving on. Palossand. Palossand is interesting, right? You probably like Palossand if you want to tank with it. It's like not the greatest, right, in terms of defensive stats for Palossand. I'm misremembering. Yeah, 169, 160. Again, it's not bad, but it's not it's nothing insane either. And its HP, if I remember correctly, is pretty suspect. Yeah, the HP is suspect. Personally, I wouldn't use the lucky skill on it, but if you do, again, you could make it, again, the tank lucky skills. You could do that, or honestly, another option you could go with Palossand is give it like hit and run, or maybe even defense crush, right? Defense crush or hit and run. These are all decent options for Palossand, because Palossand, you'll be running it with Cynthia, right? Cynthia is a physical striker, one of the best in the game. If you have defense crush on it, and Palossand has a 1-star spammable Astonish, so you will always be spamming Astonish, right? Especially with Cynthia that has move gauge, regen, speed up in Sandstorm as well. So spam Astonish, get lucky. Hopefully you could decrease your opponent's defenses, and that makes Cynthia hit harder, or again, or the other one, hit and run, whatever it's called right now. Increase your speed, when you spam your 1-gauge move, right? So I think those two are also really decent choices for Palossand as well. Moving on to Pikachu. Pikachu, honestly, lucky skill, using it on Pikachu, I really don't know what you want to do with Pikachu. Pikachu doesn't really need any lucky skills. Nothing really benefits it that much. If you really want to, then probably, again, just hit and run, right? 2, whatever it's called. Hit and run 2 is okay. Defense crush, maybe it's just not as good as Palossand, because Palossand you're almost guaranteed to work with a physical striker, Cynthia, and Pikachu you sometimes work with special strikers, right? So then defense crush becomes not really useful, but you do, again, in the same vein, have that 1-gauge spammable move, right? So I'd probably go with hit and run personally, right? Moving on. Raichu. Raichu, not sure why anyone would use a lucky skill on Raichu. But if you would, then probably Power Flux 3. Because Raichu will have a decent amount of gauge, a lot of gauge stuff or gauge slash speed stuff for Raichu, right? So you could do that, I guess. I wouldn't do Crit Strike because Raichu doesn't really have crit, unless you have like supports, which if you are running Raichu with sports, then sure, Crit Strike too. Reuniclus, I'd really just use. I mean, there's two ways you can use Reuniclus. One as a striker, one as a tank. Personally, I'd like using Reuniclus as a tank more, and in that case, want to go with Vigilance, because if I remember correctly, Reuniclus already has Antitoxin and Flameproof, so you don't have to roll for those. Therefore, Vigilance should be like the clear cut one over here, unless you want to go for Stoic, which is fine as well. Yeah, I also have Escape Artist as well. Yeah. I personally would just much rather Reuniclus be a tank than obviously Vigilance against Stoic, one of those two. But if you want to use it as striker, that's fine as well. Again, Caitlyn does not have crit, so Power Flux 3 would be fine. And you do have move gauge boost, a lot of move gauge boost stuff. So Power Flux in that scenario again would help a lot. Moving on to Rotom. Rotom, just your same run the mill tank stuff, right? If you want hit and run too on it as well, it's I guess, sure. But I personally just prefer Vigilance and Stoic and all that stuff on Rotom more, right? So, moving on, Salazzle. Salazzle is weird because, like, Salazzle is listed as a striker, but honestly, I prefer Salazzle being used as a tech unit more than Salazzle being used as a striker. Salazzle's a fine striker, right? A lot of people meme about Salazzle. But Salazzle with its grid actually does decent damage. But again, I probably personally would prefer to use it as a really, really strong tech unit instead that flinch and poison your opponent, right? So in that case, it's again 1 gauge spam. I'd probably go something like Hit and Run, Defense Crush if you were running it. Although most, well, I wouldn't say most. I mean, I guess poison type is split, right? But generally, I guess go with Hit and Run. If you want to go stuff like Power Flux 3, you go for that as well. Which again fits Salazzle because Salazzle does have move gauge boost, so there's that. Moving on. Next one, Serperior. Serperior, there's a few options you could go for. Some people go for Flying Guard, which I'm personally not a huge fan of, which decreases the damage that you take from Flying type moves. Like, that's still gonna be super effective against you. I'd just rather not do that. I'd just rather put Normal Guard instead. But I would still prioritize Vigilance on, Vigilance, again, Vigilance, Antitoxin, Flameproof, and Stoic too, right? I prioritize those on Serperior first, but, if you don't have any of those cookies left, you want to go with the guards. I would personally prefer Normal Guard over Flying Guard, although Flying Guard's not bad. I would just not use it in stages that have flying type units. Like, just use another tank. There's not that many tanks that are weak to flying, right? You basically use almost any other tank that you want. That's not superior on those stages. And Normal Guard, because a lot of the hardest hitting moves in the game are normal type stuff like Giga Impact, Hyper Beam, all that stuff, right? So moving on, and the Normal Guard that I just mentioned also applies to like all the other tanks here as well, right? So yeah, there's that. Moving on. Steelix. Oh, except all the other tanks are just for whatever. Oh, actually, Steelix not out. Let's not talk about Steelix then. Sauna's also not out. Torkoal. Torkoal. Yeah, when they do come out, I'll talk about them separately in their, Synchrid build videos, which now I do also incorporate some lucky skills suggestions in those videos as well. Torkoal, again, it's decent tank. Doesn't really heal those. I wouldn't say it's like that great of a tank, but it's okay. Well, it doesn't heal yet. Healing Sun, I don't think is out. I think it's behind. Yeah. Healing Sun's 3 out of 5. But Torkoal, again, Vigilance, Antitoxin, all that stuff, whatever. Maybe not Stoic because you could just raise your defense by itself. But yeah, another option would be, again, since it's a 1 gauge spam user, Hit and Run is another option here, right? So moving on, are we almost done here? Oh, Vileplume. Vileplume, basically the same stuff, also a decent tank. Again, Vigilance, Antitoxin, this, that. Does Vileplume have Antitoxin? I don't think it does, right? I think Vileplume is what? Piercing Gaze and something. I don't think it's Antitoxin. Is it Flameproof? Piercing Gaze. Oh, no, it literally is just Piercing Gaze. Okay, then, you know, again, your standard, whatever, Guard plus Antitoxin, Flameproof, Vigilance, Stoic, all that stuff. So, oh god, that was a doozy list. It's a lot of units, and it keeps growing. But anyways, that's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel for some more Pokemon Masters content. We will be streaming Animal Crossing later today as well, so tune in to that. It should be fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one.